Succession planning in the credit union world comes with a lot of challenges. There's been so many mergers, almost to a point where the NCUA said this is a problem and we need to do something about it.
As we go through target leadership, we spend a lot of time focusing not so much on the leader you think you are, but how others view you.
More than half of our executives are set to retire along with him. What does that leave the credit union with?
Similar to the 333, I want my people I'm going to invest in them, and then I want them to invest in their people.
The succession planning aspect, you've got today, tomorrow, and beyond.
You're listening to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, a podcast that delivers value and offers up insight that'll help your credit union grow. ServiceStar has been consulting with credit unions for over 20 years, growing them in the areas of cultural development, leadership development, and management training. To learn more about what ServiceStar can do for you or your credit union, check them out at servicestarconsulting.com.
Welcome to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast. I'm Scott Anderle, the host, where we are here to inspire current and aspiring leaders. In a way that we're doing that is we're doing something completely new, completely different, and I'm very excited to see how this plays out. Could be awesome. Chances are it will be awesome. What we're doing today is I'm bringing on quite a few people. We're doing a panel round. And in this panel round, I'm bringing people that have gone through our target leadership course or that are currently going through it to talk about the impact this course has made. And what really prompted this was Peter and I had been talking, our facilitator of this course, and we had realized when we created this that there was a need for this. And actually, this goes into the final rule of succession planning. The chairman over there released this quote and said, this final rule in succession planning establishes a way for the NCUA to address one of the most common causes for unplanned and unforced credit union mergers. It also ensures that smaller institutions remain the cornerstone of our nation's federally insured credit union systems. There's been so many mergers, almost to a point where the NCUA said this is a problem and we need to do something about it to make sure that we're keeping credit unions the way it should be, and we're not creating these giant banks that might lose the mindset of this. So what they've done is, effective January 1st of 2026, is that the board and the leaders need to provide a plan saying how we plan on filling these positions and the expected target date for expiration of their current leadership. And with that, they need to estimate a budget, how they're going to develop their leaders, how they're going to find future leaders. And not only this is supposed to be reviewed by their board every 2 years. So we're stepping up, we're doing something to make sure, hey, let's follow what we're about. And Peter and I were talking, and Peter, I shared this article with you, Future Proof Your Credit Union. And we'll put the link in the show notes for everyone here. But what they were talking about is succession planning in the credit union world comes with a lot of challenges. They specifically say this. They said smaller credit unions often struggle with limited talent pools and resources that impeding retirement for many leaders. A lot of leaders say, well, I'm just going to stay here until we get everything worked out. And then they keep staying longer and longer. And this intensifies the situation where it gets to a point of desperation where they say, well, let's just merge with another credit union. Peter, I found this exciting because you and Taylor, our CEO, had developed a class because y'all foresaw this being an issue years before this final rule came out. And that's what created Target Leadership, the course that you facilitate for us. Can you tell me, I want you to take me back 2 or 3 years ago when you and Taylor started talking about this. Why was Target Leadership created?
Well, thanks, Scott, for having me on here today. And I guess I should be a futurist now, right? I guess that's what you're telling me, right? I can make all predictions. Is that what you're saying? So we got this one right. We did, yeah. And so 2 years ago, as I was leaving my career in education, and I sit on the board of directors of Team One, which is based up in Michigan. Part owners of ServiceStar. So Taylor and I had met numerous times. We started to have some conversations about, some things that we could do together. And we started to identify, because we had just gone through it at Team One, right? Looking for a new CEO and how challenging that was. And, we're from a relatively, if you don't know where Team One is, we're in Saginaw, Michigan. If you don't know where Saginaw, Michigan is, we're about 2 hours straight north of Detroit. So we're not a big metropolitan area. So we struggled in finding a lot of candidates that we felt were qualified for what we wanted, right? Now we were looking outside, we were looking inside. And so we were just having a hard time finding the right person. We eventually did. And that's a whole other story we can go down if we want to, but it was a struggle. And so what Taylor and I started to realize was, and he showed me some graphs and we did some research and we found, in the 60s, late 60s, there were about 20,000 credit unions. Now there's around 4,600 or so, give or take. And in that number, around 46, in our research, we found about half of those CEO or half of those credit union CEOs would be retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. And we did more research, and we found that roughly around half the new CEOs being hired at credit unions, I'll use the word fail, but that's probably not the right word to use, but weren't really being successful in moving their credit unions forward. And so we started to figure out, okay, or think about how could we help to solve that problem. We identified that as a huge problem in the credit union world because you, everyone on this podcast that's listening, all the panel here, are huge credit union supporters, and we want to see this movement succeed. And what we were starting to realize was there's some potential pitfalls here that could hurt not just a credit union, but the movement as a whole. And so we wanted to figure out, is there a way we could help develop the next generation of credit union leaders? And so we started with CEOs, but really kind of morphed out of that, right? Because from my philosophy, if you're going to need a lot of CEOs, you're also going to need a lot of C-suite people, right? A lot of mid managers so it's not just the CEOs we're trying to focus on. We're also focusing on all those mid-level to upper-level managers that are eventually maybe going to take those roles. But how can we help them develop into the next generation of leaders that we know our industry needs? And so that's where the idea started to come from. We started to do some research as to how we could do that, and that's where Target Leadership was born.
And to further your point of talking about so many people are planning on retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, Cody Sanchez outside of the credit union is talking about how this is a opportunity nationwide, where you have the baby boomer generation, one of the largest in population, are all planning on retiring. And with everyone planning on retiring, there is a lot of opportunity for growth, like you just said, not just C-level, but also middle managers. So for those that are aspiring leaders, this is an awesome time for you, an awesome time to prepare for leadership roles that might even skyrocket, is that the word I'm looking for, your trajectory faster if you appropriately prepare, which is part of the reason why this course exists. And what was really exciting when we read through this article, Peter, the Future Proof Your Credit Union, talking about the final rule, I want to read this quote from the article. They said, I talked about the challenges there. I said, now they say the answer lies in prioritizing leadership development. So often, Mike and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. People's succession plan is, all right, 45 days before I retire, I'll put a job posting up for this position and we'll see what happens. And that's not the answer. Well, I think what CU Insight's getting at here is really it. It's prioritizing leadership development. They say this includes fostering a culture of psychological safety where employees feel empowered to innovate and grow, giving them development opportunities, delegating to them. It also means developing emotional intelligence in leaders, enabling them to build strong teams and navigate complex relationships. I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we're doing with Target Leadership. Peter, give us the crash course of what's all in Target Leadership, and why did you and Taylor decide to do this? And now that we're starting to see other courses emerge from other people, what makes Target Leadership different that people would want to take this to help prepare them?
Yeah, so Target Leadership, so we partnered with a company called Giant, which Giant is a company that's done an extensive work on leadership development. And so we got hooked up with them and we started to see what they were offering. And we felt that would be a great fit in the credit union world. And so what Target Leadership does, first thing we ask you to do is we ask you to take an assessment. Now, we probably have all taken personality assessments. There's a number of them out there. Yeah. And, what we found with this one through Giant was we felt it really simplified it, right? It didn't lay out all these extensive things that you needed to do or should do. It was just a simple, easy way to identify different leaders that you had in your organization. We can clearly identify, and hopefully the panelists here will support this. I'm sure they will, because I've had conversations with them about it. The assessment was pretty accurate about who they were, right? Not going to be 100%, but it was very accurate about who they were as an individual and who they are as a leader. And so we started to take that information and say, okay, well, how can we use that? So we started to have some group sessions where we would meet with a big group and we would discuss these, and that worked well. But then we modified it the second time we ran it. So we did 4 group sessions where we break down some of this assessments and how you did, looking at some of the strengths and weaknesses that all of the 5 voices is what we call them. And what's a Giant, what are the strengths and weaknesses of all of them? What do we call triggers them? What's their defense mechanisms? How can we make them better leaders? And so we took all that in the group sessions, talk about that. But then what we do is we break it down into one-on-one sessions. We started to meet individually with people so we can address their own concerns and their issues about their voice and how we can help them individually develop into that credit union leader that we hope and need them to be going forward. Not saying none of these people are bad leaders, not saying that's not what we're saying at all, but how can we make them even better leaders? So if we go back to what we talked about just a minute ago, we said around half those CEOs are going to fail. And again, it doesn't mean they're running the credit unions into the ground, just means they're not getting the growth out of the industry that we need them to get. And we think a lot of that revolves into how they're managing and leading people. So how can we help them identify their strengths and weaknesses, get them to see that, and then maybe have them modify some of that behavior a little bit so they can become better leaders going forward. And so we really think target leadership helps to fill that void. And Taylor and I, talked about that extensively. We've gone back and forth about how to run this program. We've modified it. And we think we now have a winning program here where we've got these group sessions and then these one-on-one sessions that really allow us to get into the weeds with those individuals to see how we can help them not only move them forward, but move their team forward, move the organization forward, and then move the credit union movement forward. That's what it is. So, yeah.
So I'm hearing you say two things. The first thing I'm hearing you say is target leadership helps develop the EQ, the emotional intelligence of being aware of how do I come across to my team? What are the things that upset me? Or what are the things that I'm a champion of? And how to utilize that to best lead your leadership team in complex situations to prepare you. So for lack of a better word, we don't fail in the first 5 years of being a CEO. But also what I'm hearing you say is because we've been developing this course, it's been 3 or 4 years in the making, but we just launched it 2 years ago, is we've already had the opportunity to refine this to be really speak to the needs of credit union leaders and what they need. And what you said is you've learned we need more effective one-on-ones, and we've started doing that. And what we're about to do is we're about to bring on some people that have taken the class or currently taking the class to see how it's impacting their leadership, their credit union, and potentially their succession planning as well. So let's do this. We're going to take a quick break to hear an ad from our sponsors, and then we'll get back to this with our panelists.
So you're interested in Service Star training, but you don't know what courses to send your employees to. Introducing course bundles. Launch your employees into unparalleled growth through our Credit Union PhD, Service Excellence, and Becoming a Sales Champion or Referral Sales Champion workshops in the bundle known as the New Employee Bundle. A very popular solution for credit unions. Your employees' first dive into the rich history of our financial cooperative, where people helping people set the cornerstone of our popular credit union movement, will be established in the Credit Union PhD workshop. This workshop brilliantly lays out the groundwork of the very essence of the credit union movement. Then they learn how to evaluate your members' experience to new heights through our Service Excellence workshop. We'll equip attendees with the skills and the mindset needed to deliver exceeding excellent service every time with every member, internal or external. And that's not all. Our Becoming a Sales Champion workshop or Referral Sales Champion workshop arms employees that are member-facing with the skills to improve members' financial well-being by seamlessly presenting valuable products and services that improve financial well-being for our members. Alternatively, for those that are focused on just referrals, our Referral Sales Champion workshop opens the doors to unmatched expertise. Don't miss out on the opportunity to live out your mission one new hire at a time with this extraordinary opportunity to send your new employee to our New Employee Bundle. Bulk pricing discounts are available on our events website. Visit servicestarconsulting.com/bundle for more information.
And we're back with the Credit Union Leadership Podcast. We talked about the importance of where our movement's at when it comes to succession planning. And we're about to bring our panelists on, which I'm really, really excited about. But before they do, Peter, what thoughts do you have to kick off this panelist discussion?
Yeah, so I'm very happy to have all these folks with us today. They've all, well, 2 of them have gone through the program. One is currently in the program, so I think you're going to hopefully get some great insights from them. The one thing I wanted to express to the audience and to Scott, and I think the other 3 will know this already, they're on the panel, is as we go through target leadership, we spend a lot of time focusing not so much on the leader you think you are, but how others view you, right? And that's a huge, I think, really differentiates us from other programs. Other programs may just focus on you as the leader, and that's good. That's helpful, no question about it. But how do others view you? Because that's going to dictate how they interact with you. And that's going to dictate how your team performs and how your organization performs. So I just want to make that point because I think hopefully we'll hear some of that today from our panelists. But it's a lot of self-reflection, right? How do I how do I think I am as a leader, but also how do others view me, which I think is almost more important than how effective a leader I think I am. So, Scott, I'll turn it back to you. If you want to go to the panel, that would be great.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. That actually is. So, Sarah, when we had met, you told me about this refinement process you have, which we actually have a podcast on that. And what Peter just talked about is 2 steps in the refinement process. So the first one's recapturing and reliving. So, how do I think about this? How do I feel about it? But the important thing about this target leadership class is how do others experience this, which goes into our ruminate stage in the refinement process to refine our leadership. So I think that's a perfect segue. What I want to do is introduce everyone that's here. So Sarah, let's start with you. So Sarah, tell us, what do you do at your credit union, how long you've been with it, and specifically tell me the story of how did target leadership come at the perfect time for you?
Thanks for having me today. I've been in the industry for 17 years, but I've only been at my credit union now for 6 months. I had previously, worked in branches and things like that, but and I took a back office role for a little while and learned a lot of stuff, but I felt like I was at a point that I needed to pair my gifts of leadership with the passions that I have for service. And so an opportunity opened up for me to take a member service manager role at a local credit union here, and I felt led to do that. And so I manage and lead the branches and contact center here at Trust Photo Credit Union. And what's interesting is that I took session 1, maybe 1 and 2 when I was at Unify, and then in the middle of the course, I actually came over to New Credit Union, which was really, I would say providential in the fact that I was able to, in real time, put these things that I was learning to test. I had been out of a leadership role for 2 years, and stepping back into that was exciting, but terrifying because there were people I didn't know, and I was over, a much larger pool of people managing the entire front line. And so one of the first things I did after Peter and I had our one-on-one was, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have everybody take this test because I don't know these people. And so we got,
That's awesome.
we got a lot of really great insight that has helped me understand their strengths and how they can work together. And also for them to see how I function and the things that how I prefer to lead. And it's been really helpful for me.
Yeah. So we've got someone here that's been breathing, eating the credit union lifestyle for 17 years and is now, again, in a first time in a higher leadership role. So very excited to get your perspective, Sarah. I want to bring it to John. John, your story is a little different because you've come from in the movement, but from a different perspective, moving into your current credit union. Tell me a little bit about that journey and how target leadership is helping you right now.
Yeah, Scott, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here and talk with all the great people we have. Started in the credit union industry straight out of high school. I fell on the lending side, consumer lending. As a part-time auditor, I needed the job. I just didn't have a job. Yeah. I was out of high school, didn't know where to go. And it seems to be the going trend in the credit union world. I don't know many people that grew up, I want to work at your credit union. Hopefully we can change that one day. But grew in the consumer lending department, really found the passion there for credit unions, for what we can do. Took the Rex Johnson model, learned that University of Lending, Ed Swanson, and really got the first taste of what we could do as a credit union and what we could do as an industry. Jumped around a little bit, went to the marketing side, went to the branch operations side, and had the opportunity to go back to the lending side and start an outbound lending department, which was really just finding opportunities that the members didn't know existed. It was solving problems in a different way. And it was just another reinforcement of what we do and how we can do it different than what other people can do. Actually took a different path and left an individual credit union and went over to the regional league, their trade association, the League of Southeastern Credit Unions, now the League of Credit Unions down south. I was a consultant for mostly small credit unions over in Georgia and Alabama. I worked a little bit in Florida and got to see a lot of different leadership styles by doing that. Got to work with a lot of different board members, work with a lot of different executives, a lot of different CEOs, see how they work with their teams, work with different organizations, work with other credit unions, and just pick up as much as I possibly could. I drank from the water hose as fast as I possibly could. And I found an opportunity to get back into a credit union, actually have my hands on something and be a part of something again. And
and speaking of that, what's fun is I relate to you because you acted as a consultant working with so many credit unions. But I liked what you said. I want to get my hands on it. When we had discussed, you said like you love being a consultant, the impact you made, but you really wanted to be a part of something from beginning to end and see that transformation, which is what you're a part of right now, correct?
Yeah. And that's really I oversee the branch operations and consumer lending, so I'm in the thick of it fairly consistently, and actually more so recently. And it's rewarding. It was fantastic being able to work with so many different credit unions, but being a part of a centralized team, being able to grow individuals, grow the team, grow the credit union, foster it, have just pivot. This isn't working. What can we do now? This is working. Let's grow. Let's expand and just create those relationships that I couldn't continue to build as a consultant. It's a great perspective. It's great to have both perspectives.
Yeah. And with that, so listeners, we have Sarah, who's been a part of this forever in the credit union movement. We've got John, who's been maybe a little longer than forever, but also he's worked outside of a specific credit union as a consultant and now is coming back in at a higher role of leadership. So for those of you that work at QSOs or work with organizations that work with credit unions, you'll get to hear John's background, which you may relate to and be similar. Now, I want to bring it to David. David, I think your story is fantastic. It's very different than most people in the credit union. Very fascinating hearing kind of the black sheep here. So tell me a little bit about your journey of how you got to the credit union. And how is Target Leadership helping you right now in this moment?
So my story is a bit different than a lot of credit union leaders. I've only been with the credit union for 6 years, and this is my first entree into the credit union industry. Other experience from technology businesses and financial services, but not credit union. And was asked to join the management team here to provide some additional financial analytical capability, and came in as the first CFO the credit union's ever had.
Oh, wow.
Which targeted really closely for me. You know, in leadership, we've got the concept of teamwork, right? Where most of our credit unions are run by teams. When you come in at the top and you didn't come up with everybody else who's been here for many, many, many years, and their leadership experience and management experience is limited to this organization, the formation of that team is a really critical stage, right? So we always hear about the stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing for a team, and you have to get through those to work correctly. And this program was really, I think, insightful for me in Peter touched on the one-on-ones versus the group work, and I think that really touches on what we do every day in trying to manage the credit union, right? Some of it's individual effort, but so much of it is group effort. And this assessment and this guidance that's provided through this program is really unique in terms of the assessments are always valuable in learning about yourself, right? And learning more insightful information about, you know, what you're valuing and what motivates you. But when you view that in the context of the group and how others experience you, interpret what you say, and how you lead, it really is eye-opening. And I think it's really beneficial to a group effort to understand each other and kind of accelerate that storming process and getting to know one another and get through those stages so that you can accelerate getting to the point where you value one another's perspective and the differences and nuances of how we think about different things.
Yeah. Speaking my love language with the foreman storming, norming right there. So we've got an introduction. What you hear from David is his background's very different. He comes from technology, other elements of the financial world. And I love having you in this movement, David. We need people like you that can think about, all right, how can we get the most out of the resources we have? What does this data mean? You bring a lot of strength into that, which is exciting. So I've got a few questions. Some of them I've written down. Some of them I might just ask on the spot as we're talking. And I might say, hey, you start off, but just anyone pick it up for how we want to do. And then Peter, I just want to invite you to interject between or while people are talking about, maybe bring it back to the target material or stories of working with these people as well. So question number one, all right, is currently, where is your credit union at with succession planning? You've just taken target leadership. Maybe you're like, wait, we don't have anything. Or maybe you do have something. Maybe you're here because of that. Where is your credit union at with succession planning? Who wants to take it?
I'll say I've only been at this credit union for a little over a year now. And we have our org charts really laid out: CEO, EVP, and a line of VPs and then middle managers. We're about 250 million in assets. So quickly growing. We're still, in my mind, small, but by no means small at the same time. And I came in as an interesting situation that sounds very similar to what David kind of came in to, is I'm the only executive that's actually been hired outside of internal growth in the credit union. It was new for the credit union. We actually just talked about it. The median tenure on the executive team here is 12.8 years.
Wow.
And I know I'm probably bringing that number down quite a bit, even from that. And we have about 7 executives. 4 of them are slated to retire in the next 5-ish years. So it's a real thing. We talked about it before we jumped on about the mass retirement the credit union industry is going to see. And the credit union I'm at is no different than that. It's very important. It's something that we try to consciously be a part of. This is one of the reasons I actually got brought in, is because the CEO and the EVP and the board see the need for succession. The CEO we have has been the CEO for about 30 years now. So there needs to be a flow beyond just him. And what does that look like? And if more than half of our executives are set to retire along with him, what does that leave the credit union with? And we don't want to fall in the forced merger just because of lack of planning on our end. If we can do something, then it's obviously something we need to do, which is really where we've tried to be better at delegating, I think, is really the best word for it. Is the executive team's really always been hands-on, because we're in that weird balance of small, not small. So the executives are still hands-on. We still are boots on the ground. We're in the weeds. We're doing projects. We're overseeing responsibilities and tasks. But what that does is it pulls the ability for the managers to be able to immerse themselves and learn and grow. So what we've had to do is step back and say, yeah, let's partner on this. Let's give you some more responsibility. Let's give you some more education. Let's guide you through that process. Let's set ourselves up as a credit union to grow the next generation of leaders that we know we're going to have to have sooner or later. So what can we do now to empower the people that are behind us to fill the spots that we need when we need them to be filled? And we can trust. So we're not having to do it rushed. We just throw them into a position and say, well, sink or swim. It's what can we do for you now to set you up for success right when you get in.
2 thoughts from what you just said, John. You said delegating is something. Well, first you said your leaders understand, hey, we're all retiring soon. This needs to be a conversation we're starting to have now and we're thinking about. And you said something your team has been very intentional about is delegating. Who specifically are we delegating to? Because when you went over the org chart, is it the EVPs delegating to VPs, or are y'all delegating to other people below the VPs?
Yeah, so really it's heavy on VPs delegating down to the managers.
Okay.
So the middle managers are really the ones doing the work. They are growing. We're looking at doing a possible core conversion. Managers are really taking a big part of that. We're implementing a CRM, two very big strategic projects for us. The managers are overseeing that. We're just kind of the support system to guide through that process. But it's something you can't learn it unless you do it. That's the best way to just be hands-on. And we're trying to give as many opportunities without burdening our managers to allow them to be as hands-on as possible.
Yeah, man, John, thanks for sharing all that. It's very practical and good stuff to hear. David, you had some stuff you wanted to say about where your credit union is at currently with succession planning. Is it similar? Is it different? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, very similar to what John's experiencing. So we're also in that middle tier stage. We're not small and we're not big, and that presents its own challenges. But at the same time, we're a community chartered credit union in the midst of a community that's undergoing radical change. The population growth and the development changes to our community are changing the complexion of what the community is. And the credit union will have to change with it. We're organized and formed to serve the community. So as the community changes, we must change as well. So we've got the challenge.
Speaking of that, something that's really exciting over there. I don't know if people know, but in Florida, they're starting to build, what do you call those? Like lagoon communities?
Our lagoon communities. Yeah.
Yeah.
The major amenity of these.
Two of them right beside your credit union?
There are two already, and there's a third one coming to our area, our service area very soon. So yeah, it's getting interesting.
Yeah, massive growth, different types of people coming in as well. Sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was pretty exciting for the listeners to hear. But yeah, keep going.
So yeah, we're facing not only what John mentioned, but there's a large swath, a large number of people that are key to the day-to-day operations of the credit union that are in either middle management positions or in leadership positions that all have 20 plus years of tenure here that are all going to be leaving within a 4 to 5 year period of each other. So the succession planning aspects, you've got today, tomorrow, and beyond. The today problem is we know this is coming, and then the tomorrow problem is how do we fill those seats? But the beyond problem is how do we work our strategic planning process into that as well so that we can take into consideration not filling only the roles that we know the credit union has needed in the past, but how are we identifying the needs beyond the near-term future to make sure that we're either developing or finding the talent and leadership resources needed to fill those positions as well. So a lot of challenges for our credit union right now.
Man, I love that idea of today, tomorrow, and beyond to help us strategically think. And then I'm thinking about what John said of delegating to the middle managers to prepare them for VP roles. And it reminds me, there's an episode farther back. We got to interview the CEO of Remax, not part of the credit union world, but he was talking about how he's been preparing for succession planning. He has the 3-3-3 rule, which I would say today he's saying this is a problem. What can I do about it now? And it's, hey, I'm starting to delegate to 3 people and I'm telling them to delegate and train 3 people. So as we're moving up, you've got 3 potential candidates because realistically, some people switch careers or switch to other credit unions. Something happens where you're, the one person you invested in all of a sudden maybe makes a mistake or they're not the person. So he always talks about the 3-3-3 rule of having 3 people that you're investing in and you're telling them to invest in 3 people and having them invest in 3 people. And that's what he's doing, the kind of the tomorrow focus to help them with the beyond. And speaking to what John was talking about with delegating. Thanks for sharing that, David. Yes. Sarah, I know you're a little newer at your credit union. What do you know about y'all's succession planning over there?
I'll just say that I think, Peter mentioned earlier the shrinking of the industry as a whole. As a millennial, as somebody who cares about, I'm going to be working probably till I die, but what does that look like for me going forward? I think like right now with us being small, we have some work to do, if I'm being frank. But I also understand that, our industry is perpetually changing and bringing different experience on board. And, for me, as someone who has drank the Kool-Aid and, dove in with both feet, I have tried to involve myself in lots of different areas. So I am a well-versed credit union professional in different aspects. And I think, John, we talked earlier about making it a priority that we want people to aspire to want to work at the credit union. There's the joke that nobody wakes up and says, hey, I want to be a credit union professional when I grow up. but it's giving people that credit union difference. And then for us here at Trust, currently what I'm doing is I am working with my people to develop them and invest in my leaders. I'm pulling the John Maxwell multiplier effect approach for what I'm trying to do here. And so similar to the 333, I want my people to, I'm going to invest in them, and then I want them to invest in their people. So that's what I'm doing right now, trying to develop, where I can. And also be a support for the senior management team here. So I want to, if I can help them grow and learn from them as well, once again, to develop that well-versed credit union professionalism. That's what we're striving for, but I am excited to see that the NCUA is pushing that we actually get a plan in place. Otherwise, that number of 4,600 is going to continue to diminish, and that lessens opportunities for my generation of people who are excited about moving up in the industry. So if there are fewer credit unions, there are fewer opportunities for moving up into those C-suite positions.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a theme for what I want to call out for aspiring leaders. This multiplier effect, the multiplier rule is, hey, if you're in middle management, you can do something about, there's something in your control, and it's invest in your team, help develop them. And with the mindset of, hey, you could say this explicitly, but it's, hey, as I move up, I want, as what do they say? As the tide rises, all the ships rise. Is, hey, as I move up, I want you to be able to take this position, or go to a position where for work you're wired for. So that's really cool that you're doing that, Sarah. All right, let's start talking about target leadership. There's two specific questions I have, but this could go anywhere. Peter, if you have questions, guys, if you have questions or thoughts and want to interject, please do. But the first thing I want to talk about is, all right, Sarah, David, you've completed target leadership. You're a few months out of it. John, you're like right in the middle of it right now. So my question is, so far, what has been the most practical skill or takeaway that you're already using as a leader? Sarah, it sounds like using the giant voices has been huge for you in even getting to know your team. So let's start with you. What was the biggest takeaway? Maybe it's a concept, maybe it was a practical tool.
So what I used the tool for, so Peter was so kind to give me everyone's results in the order of their 5 voices, which was really helpful. And he even put together a little chart for me to show me like the foundationals and the secondary voices of my team and how many fall into those categories. And we found some really interesting dynamics for my frontline that I did not expect. But one of the things that I have used these tools for is when I came in, everyone kind of did their own thing. There wasn't like this united front. And I think there was a major disconnect in teamwork. And so we discussed, we used this assessment and another one, and we started tying things together to say, hey, this is how I perceive things, and this is how my brain works, and this is, these are my triggers. These are the things. The whole section on triggers is like really, really important, because sometimes we don't think about why things make us tick, and we're not cognizant of how we are treating other people that may cause them to be triggered. So that whole section is really, really helpful. And it's been really great for us to team build and to learn more about one another and how we can work together and understand that this person they're not hateful. You're just pushing their buttons, and, let's work together to figure out how to communicate more effectively. It's been really beneficial.
Can you give us a practical example of that? So tell me, what is your primary voice and what's that trigger for you?
My primary voice is I'm a connector. I'm big surprise here.
Nice.
But for me, like I get set off on a couple of different things, but I like people to get along, and I want people, I don't want conflict. I'm very easygoing. And so when I come into an environment that has conflict, like, hey, let's get rid of this.
Don't all just get along and be friends.
Let's come together, right?
So what I'm hearing is, using this giant tool, learning about different people's voices, as actually maybe a tool to help you of, hey, let's all get along or understand why there's that conflict.
Yeah. And so I learned that my team, we have a lot of nurturers on my team, and a lot of creatives. And so what was really exciting about that, because typically in the credit union space, we learned that there's usually a lot of guardians on the front line. And my team, we only had two. So I was able to use this to figure out ways to engage my team and giving them creative outlets for input and to work together to try to get them more engaged. And I've been tracking the progress. I've seen a lot of upward momentum in what we're doing. So very exciting. But yeah, really, really pleased to see how this has impacted my coming into a new credit union, into a senior leader role without knowing these people at all. So it's been great.
And Scott, if I can jump in there, because I think she raises a great point. She talks about, in target leadership, we talk about you all the time, right? And we talk about, we want how others perceive you. But I think for those that are willing to take that next step, like Sarah did and some other folks have done, is have people they're working with take that assessment too, just so they could see who they're working with. That's when this stuff really becomes valuable, because now you know how they interact together. And you can get, maybe, hopefully, that's the goal. Again, it's not going to happen overnight, right? But you can start to hopefully eliminate some of that toxic, some of that gossip, and some of those things that really can hurt workplaces. And we think that's a real asset of target leadership, but you have to be willing to take that next step, right? Because again, it's not just about you, it's about everyone you're working with and how can they work together more effectively. And I know Sarah took that, and it sounds like, she's having some great success, and I'd encourage other folks to do that as well. So I think it's a great thing we offer at ServiceStar.
Yeah. Well, and something maybe I should have said at the beginning is that ServiceStar, we have 3 different leadership courses. So level 1's emerging leaders. This is for your rock star employees to understand themselves and prepare them for a leadership role. And we do talk about the giant voices. We talk about in developing a brand. So it's more of that self-awareness. How do you work? Then in level 2, this is meant for middle managers. We even have CEOs take this. And that is a very practical class of, hey, here's some stuff to do. In one course in there, we have is called conflict resolution. And what I'm hearing Sarah say is really going to conflict resolution. Sometimes people come to this class saying, how can I help my employees work through conflict and get to an answer? Well, sometimes, and studies show, it's okay to have different opinions and not agree. But if we're able to have a authentic conversation, there's been research that shows, I was thinking of a Ken Coleman podcast on, it's not called Armchair Expert, but a recent episode, he talked about how they had studies where people can just have a discussion where they seek to be understood and to understand the other, that it will solidify connection to the point where they call it the matching principle, where their breathing will start being in time with each other and their pupils will dilate the same. And we start to feel more connected. And being able to have these giant voices would help us seek to understand and be understood. And then in the level 3, which is target leadership, preparing people for the C-level roles, is how do I use this with other leaders? How do I use this with leading a giant team, which is really, really exciting. David, you've recently finished at the same time as Sarah, target leadership. What was a big takeaway for you from that course?
Yeah, so a big takeaway for me was the difference, but as I touched on earlier, the difference between other assessments that I've been through, other programs I've been through that go into depth of helping you understand yourself and understand other maybe personality types. But it was more difficult in those other programs to map that to the experiences I was having on a daily basis and the people I was working with. This program made it it's simpler to understand why certain feelings exist. And this natural tension was existing and I was experiencing in meetings, and it put it into a perspective for me that was like a light bulb going off. I told Peter, it felt like he gave me the secret decoder ring that I could now interpret conversation and meetings in a way that made them more meaningful. And wow. I'm a creative connector. So to understand how rare that is in this space, and that future looking voice, the impact it has on others who may be guardians, that I'm standing there looking up at what we need to build next, but they felt a lack of sensitivity on my part to the foundation I was already standing on, which they had such a foundational role in building. And it made me more conscious of being more respectful of what's been built so far and pay better credit for that. Didn't do it intentionally. It's just I was always looking forward, and they needed that backward look as a respect of what this place has been through and what these key people, what role they played in building that. So that was absolutely something I was able to put into action right away and slow down and realize their perspective is just different than mine, and it's okay.
Huge. That's huge.
And Scott, if I can jump in there again too, I mean, David's absolutely right. And one of the things we talk about is that we break all these voices down by a percent of the population, right? So the two biggest ones are nurturers and guardians, and they represent around 73 or so percent of the population. But what we talk about is those two, and I don't know if this is what Dave was getting at, but I think it's a good point to make to him as well, that those two groups, 73% of the population or so, are somewhat resistant to change, right? They don't like to change. They like the status quo. And so, if you're a leader and you're experiencing issues with people resisting change, not wanting to change, however you want to phrase that, that might be the reason. And once you understand that, it helps you, like we call, build some of those bridges to help them get to that change, because not that they don't want to change, but it just takes them a longer time to get to that change. As I was telling someone yesterday, and I think we would all agree with this statement, right? A lot of times once you get through the change, those same people are going to say, why didn't we do this years ago? Because it's so much better. But getting them through that is the difficult part. And that's why I think what we try to help them, at least make them aware of that. We can't, each person's different, so I can't solve every individual's problem about their resistance to change, but it puts in your mind to realize that, okay, these people aren't trying to come after me. It's just who they are, right? They're a little slower to get there, and how can I help them get there in a more effective way? So.
Yeah, David, your team's probably like, why didn't we do this years ago? And you're like, I've been trying to do this years ago. Yeah, Peter, there's a discussion we had before where you said the creator or creative, which is David, the connector, which is Sarah, and the pioneer. There's a term for that of them embracing change. Was it future thinking voices?
Yeah,
how would you
voices.
word that?
Yeah, we call it future voices. So they're much more prone to changing, right? And what happens with them is they get a little frustrated. They're only 27% of the population. They get frustrated with the other 73% of the population that doesn't want to change, and that causes a lot of turmoil. So once you at least understand that, I think you have a better expectation for how you're going to get this change done. Doesn't mean it's going to solve all your problems, but at least you understand that's just who they are. And now I got to, like I said a few minutes ago, help them to get these bridges built to get them to that change. And it might take me a little bit longer. I just might have to be a little more patient with them, but they'll get there. But it just takes them a little while to get to that.
And as you talk about that, we talk about how we've seen a lot of CEOs most likely don't make it the first 5 years. And I would argue that the big contributing factor of that is because they're not bridge builders. We may have future thinking, but they can't get their team on board with that. John, what about you? What are some of your thoughts with all this?
Yeah, so very new in the program, but even the short time, 2 group sessions in, and still needing to do my one-on-one with Peter, it's been eye-opening. As I know Peter said it earlier, it's very look in the mirror, and I think that's, aside from a holistic team's perspective, that's really what I needed, was to see how other people viewed me, and it's something I try to do. And I'm a big fan of an author. He's actually a real estate guy, Ryan Serhant, and he calls it a BS audit. And I try to do that, where you have key people in all different parts of your life, and you say, be honest, what do you think? What are your opinions of this and that? And it was something, I think this was the missing piece with the 5 voices, was I always got the feedback, but I never really knew what direction to take it, or I never knew what the cause was. And a lot of it was communication. So I'm a creative pioneer. And
oh, wow, what a combo.
So, I know. I know. That was fun to learn. And
what I'll say for the listeners real quick, just so you know, in the giant voices, they tell you your volume level. So like in a group, how likely are you to speak up? And the creative is typically the quietest voice, or one of the quietest voices, where the pioneer is the loudest voice. So that's what's really insightful with you, John. Keep going. Sorry. So you learned about this, you have information, what to do with it.
Yeah. So it was really just how people understand my communication. I think the really big eye-opening thing was, I'm a big believer in communication, but I believe the approach I was taking I was confusing communication with effective communication. And those are two very different things. I was just communicating, but it wasn't effective. So really what this has done for me immediately was to take a step back and look inside and say, how do I make what I'm trying to do more effective? And I think it goes along with David's point and Peter's point of change. I love change, and being a creative pioneer, I guess it comes natural. But coming new into this role, I was actually brought on, the position was created to affect change. So my expectations were to come in and do new things. And it's very difficult to come into a new environment and just start changing everything, because you start to get that pushback. So it was a weird balancing act that I'm still trying to play of, we've done it this way for so long, I want to do it this way. How do I communicate that effectively? I've been communicating, but how do I make it effective? And this has really opened my eyes to say, I'm halfway there, but this is how I make it to the finish line with effective communication.
And speaking to effective communication, I think like Sarah's huge takeaway is understanding the triggers of every voice. So as you're saying, because you're being an agent of change, and what Peter had said is over 70% are not as future oriented. So how you communicate, you got to make sure that for those not future oriented people, that you're also not burning bridges, but building bridges to help that. And with each style, like with Sarah's being a connector, it's, hey, I want to make sure there's harmony. And if you're bringing up change and you say, I don't care who's on board, you get on the bus or you get hit by the bus, people that are a connector might be like, whoa, that doesn't sound good. So it really helps us connect. I want to open it up real quick. I do want to get to this fun quiz that I want to end off our podcast with, but I want to open it up to everyone. What's something that we haven't talked about that you really wanted to say that you think our listeners, current or aspiring leaders, need to hear, or a story of a big impact, or just a question that you have? Want to open it up real quick before we do the next thing?
I think the best thing that I've tried to do, and I think Scott, you said it earlier, was intentionality. And I've really tried to make it an intentional focus for. We talked about it the other day on the leadership direction I'm trying to take with our branch, our grassroots leadership teams. And the primary pillar of it's clarity. And really, I did that for myself, because I, again, looked in the mirror. I expect clarity from my supervisors, from the CEO, from the board. But if I'm not giving clarity down to my teams, then I'm doing them a disservice. And I'm doing something that I'm myself am asking for. So trying to lay it out and be very open and transparent with my teams that this is something I struggle with, and I need you to call me out on it. I'm going to try to be intentional with my communication, but if it misses the mark, let me know. And it's something that I'm going to continue to try to build.
Yeah, John, I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly. That's a great thing to end on here. I would say you definitely need to be intentional in your leadership. You don't want to be what we call accidental, right? You don't want to just to hope they get that information and hope they get those skill sets. You want to be intentional to make sure they do that. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that you want to provide the challenge and support for your employees so they can grow, and that will help them develop into the next generation of credit union leaders. But you'd have to do that, like you said, intentionally, right? You can't just hope that happens. And I think Target Leadership helps you to at least start to think about that and get you going in that right direction. So
yeah, man, what a great way to end this. Producer, I want you to open up the screen share. We're going to end off with a quiz. So guys, if you've got your phones, pull them out. If you don't, you can also do this on the computer and type in that website. Listeners, or viewers, because we have this on YouTube as well, you can see this. But also, if you're listening, I'll ask the questions out loud and we'll be answering these. This will give y'all something to think about. It's really going to go over what we just talked about with succession planning on two aspects. One is, what is the situation the credit union is in based on research we've done, but also learning about these 5 voices. And these might prompt some discussions. If there's anything y'all want to say as we're talking about this between questions, let's definitely talk about it. I think it'll be exciting. So let's make sure we got everyone scanned, and click that thumbs up so we know that everyone's there. The first question will just be a test question. Make sure we got this. So Ryan, go to the next slide. Let's make sure we've got this. So first question is, how long have you worked in our movement? Is it less than 5 years? Is it over 15 years, 10, 5? So for me, I'm like 1 to 5 years. My previous background was Chick-fil-A. We got a few people in 5 years. My guess is David. And who's the other? Am I right with David? David, did you say 5?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Who's the other person that's 5 years? Maybe
that
I
would be
misheard.
me. I've been about 7, 8 years.
Okay. All right. Sweet. And then looks like 15 years. Is that Sarah? Yeah, that's what I thought. And then, yeah, Peter. All right. And Peter, for you, that's you being a part of the board over at your credit union. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is how it's going to go. These future questions, there is a right answer. So the question will pop up. You'll have like 5 to 10 seconds just to read the question without seeing any answers. So I will read the answer for our listeners. And then as the answers pop up, I will share all the answers so the listeners can hear it. And then they can kind of mentally answer along with us. I'm going to change my name from Joanna to Scott. Usually when I do this live, I tell people don't name yourself because you don't want to see it if you got it wrong. But I feel like this is a safe place. So let's do this first question. Can everyone use all 5 voices? So we talked about 5 voices. Can you only use your primary, or can you tap into all 5 of these voices? What do we teach in Target Leadership? Yes or no? And survey says, yes, we can use all 5 voices. Peter, can you just lightly tap onto what do we mean by that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you actually have access if you look at your breakdown and so everyone gets like their voice order. So you do actually have access to all 5. That's the theory behind the 5 voices. But the first couple ones are the ones you're going to be using the most. The last couple are going to be the ones you use the least. And then actually the last voice on your voice order is actually what we call your nemesis voice. That's probably the least likely you're going to use. It's the one that you're going to probably butt heads the most with. So, but yes, you actually have access to all 5, but some use more than others.
You need to be intentional. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, let's see. Question number 2. Go ahead and press enter. Let's see what we got. In the giant voices, the connector. All right, Sarah, we're looking at you. What's the connector known as? The bulldozer, a champion of relational networks, or the intellectual architect? What is the connector known as? Or David, this is your secondary voice as well, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So David, that's supposed to be right. It says it's wrong, listeners, but it's right. It's right. So y'all don't get points. No one gets points. Whoa, mistake on my part. I got to edit that. But it is a champion of relational networks. That's what the connector is known as. David, how does this look like in your role when you're talking with people, when you're interacting?
You mentioned the concept of building bridges. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of recognizing and empathizing different perspectives, and then trying to lead others to see a different perspective. And that's really the role.
Yeah, man, I'm still just not fascinated, but let down that I made this the wrong answer when it's clearly the right answer. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, let's press enter. Let's see what this one is. A hint, I'm pretty sure it's not about the giant voices. So just get ready. It's from stats we pulled for part of why we created Target Leadership. So in 2013, there were 6,795 credit unions. As of Q4 of 2024, how many credit unions exist now? Is it still 6,795? Is it 5? It's supposed to be 5,000, or is it 4,455? Boom. Yeah. And Peter, this is what you were talking about, your research with Taylor that prompted this. Actually, go to the next slide, producer Ryan. I've got a picture for us to look at. This is just from 2013 to now. And you see a steady decline in the number of credit unions, which is a little disheartening. I think, Sarah, what we were talking about was this idea of we want to give opportunities for leadership, especially for this next generation, as we have a lot of people retiring. But as we're looking at this stat, what does this tell you about opportunities for aspiring leaders?
There's definitely fewer opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a little sad. That's something we needed. And I think that's what's exciting about this mandate of the succession plan, because they want to keep these smaller credit unions being a part of their communities, giving people opportunities to lead their communities to better stuff. Let's go to the next question. All right. Since 2013, how many members movement-wide? Have we seen an increase in membership over all credit unions, or have we seen a decrease overall in all credit unions since 2013? We've seen that there's less credit unions, but have we been increasing or decreasing in members? And survey says, all right, so some people say, oh my gosh, I am really bad at this. It says both answers are wrong. You know, I'm learning about myself right here. All right. The correct answer, drum roll, is increasing. So number of credit unions have been decreasing, but the membership of these credit unions have actually been increasing. Go to the next slide, producer Ryan. Man, whoever wins, it's not going to be accurate. But what's interesting is since 2013, if you are watching our video, you see this graph of how we've been raising in membership. It went from 100 million or right under 100 million to now we're at 132 million members. So we have less credit unions, but more members. So what are some observations? What's some hope that we're seeing with these stats? Does someone want to chime in? What does this mean to y'all?
Well, it means our movement itself is doing well, maybe in terms of getting members, but the number of places we have that can advocate for credit unions is certainly dropping. And that's a concern, right? When the number of credit unions drops, that means you have less people advocating for credit unions. We have more members. That's positive. That means more people are getting into the movement, but we still need those people to advocate for us.
So we're helping more people win with money, but there's a threat that we might lose the heart of who we are. David, what did you have to add to that?
I was going to say it's a sign of hope. It's obviously a clear indicator that our mission and our values still resonate and are still relevant. And now the question for us as leaders within a credit union is, can we continue to keep our individual institution relevant and moving forward?
Oh, very well worded. And also for aspiring leaders, I think there's hope in this as credit unions grow, there will be more opportunities to develop, maybe more opportunities to create newer jobs that we haven't even thought about yet to help impact our membership as well. So there's definitely opportunities where we might want to lean into those creatives or those pioneers to think of new ways of impacting our communities. Let's go to the next one. Well, fingers crossed that I selected what the right answer is. Let's see. I think this is going to be about the giant voices. Let's see. So next question says, what is the most common primary voice? So we talk about the 5 voices. What's the most common primary voice? Is it pioneer, guardian, nurturer, connector, or creative? I think I got it right. Let's see if I selected the right answer on this. And hey, I did. All right. Nurturer is the most primary voice. So Peter, what you were saying is between nurturer and guardian, that makes over 70%. Do you know offhand what percentage is nurturers?
Nurtures is 43% of the time. Yeah.
And Peter's over here like, I got it, like as if this was a surprise to you, but you knew. All right, let's go to the next slide. I think this is going to be the last question that we're going to end off on. So here we go. When is the effective date for NCUA's final rule on succession planning, when we need to present that plan, the budget, things like that? Is it August of 2025, May of 2029, or is it January of 2026? How soon does this go into effect? Yep. January 1st, 2026 is the effective date. So a lot of us, we need to start thinking now, and it needs to be more than we'll put a job posting on Indeed. Like they said in Future Proof Your Credit Union, what we wholeheartedly agree on is we need to develop our leaders. All right. This will be skewed. All right. But the next slide is going to show who the winner is. So let's see what happens here. It's not me. Definitely not me. And the winner is, it looks like it's David.
David, all right.
Get some confetti. And David might be like, now, David, I need you to be honest. Did you get a lot of answers wrong from the ones that said right or wrong, or that didn't have the right answer?
The only ones that I got wrong were the ones that you said every answer was the wrong answer. So I feel like it's a pretty good win.
Hey, look at that. You using the system to your advantage. Awesome. Well, guys, thank y'all so much. This is our first panel episode that we've ever done. It's really cool to get different perspectives and hear this impact. But for those of y'all listening, all right, we've talked about the challenge of succession planning. We've talked about the solution is target leadership. And what I'll encourage you to do is go in the show notes, go on our website, sign up for our next target leadership class. And also, again, target leadership is level 3. We've got emerging leaders for those rockstar employees that want to develop, and take that first. If you've already taken that, take Vertex, which is meant for middle managers or higher level leaders to use practical skills. And if you've done that, come to level 3, where we talk more about the abstract and complicated aspects of leadership with Peter. Really, really good stuff. Guys, thank you so much for being on the Credit Union Leadership Podcast. We'll see y'all later. Interested in submitting a question to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, we want to hear from you. Go in our show notes. We have a link over there, and in that link, it's going to take you to 2 options. You can submit a question written out through email, or you can submit an audio recording through SpeakPipe. We make it super easy. Go to the link in the show notes, click audio recording. Once you click audio recording, it's going to take you straight to a website where you just press the record button. You've got 90 seconds to submit a question or submit you catching doing somebody do it right. And then you just type in your name and email address, and that's it. It comes straight to us, and we'll take it from there. So you don't need to download anything. You don't need to get any new software. You just go to this website, press record, and click submit, and we're good to go. So go to the link in the show notes. Click if you want to submit a question written out or through audio, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Service Stars target leadership. Credit unions executives, we cannot afford to have breakdowns in key leadership areas. If you have breakdowns in communication, what's that going to create? Unnecessary conflict, drama, and just dropping the ball. If we have breakdowns in relationship, what does this create? Mistrust, toxic environments. If there's breakdowns in alignment, we're wasting effort. We're losing time. There's division. Breakdowns in execution. Oh my gosh, we're talking about unmet goals, missed deadlines, blown budgets, and damaged credibility. These are the things you don't want. What you need to do is gain insights into your strengths and weaknesses by diagnosing each of these leadership areas and pinpointing opportunities for improvement. And guess what? Service Star Consulting and Giant Worldwide are joining forces to nurture credit union leaders who can inspire. We've got a certified coach, Peter Tyson, who is going to test these out and work on these skills to help you develop your talent, your alignment, your reflection, your growth, your engagement, and tailored coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching sessions where you get to reflect what you've learned on during these courses. This is a great thing. If you've taken Emerging Leaders and Vertex, this is the next step in your leadership journey. This is meant for managers, directives, and executive leaders. It's also meant for people that want to become executive leaders. So don't wait. Sign up today. The link is in the show notes.